name is Andy Schneider, and I have a blog over at git-powershell.com, and I'm going to talk to you today about source control for IT pros. So I am not a developer by any stretch of the imagination, but I came across this problem, and I've been dabbling with it for the last couple of months and wanted to share it out with y'all. So that being said, basically what we're going to cover today, first of all, why source control, specifically for IT pros. We're going to look at a couple different options, some that have been around for a long time, some that have been a little newer, and then basically mostly just demos, figuring out kind of what I've been doing for the last couple of months, how I solved this problem. If there are some developers in the house, then this might be a little boring for you. This is going to be pretty superficial, but it gets the job done. And feel free to chime in with questions as you see fit. Be more than happy to try to answer them. So first of all, why source control? So here's what I was looking to solve. I wanted to have access to my code, to my scripts, no matter where I was at. If I'm at work, at home, if I'm on a colleague's machine, if I'm on a server, how can I get access to my scripts and know that they're up to date? So that was really important. Secondly, I want to be able to share my code with others, especially actually in the PowerShell community, kind of like this group here. You know, there's a bunch of great repositories, but being able to control and version all those scripts, that's a whole nother side of things. So I wanted to be able to possibly combine those two if possible. And I love to share with the world, and open source is great, but there are occasions where I need my own private code and I don't want to share it with anybody. But I still want it backed up to the cloud. So what kind of options are there for that as well? Finally, I want to be able to roll back changes. I mean, that's kind of the obvious thing about source control, right? And I'm kind of tired of doing the back one, back two, back dot date of the time I took this back up dot. I forget what the heck I did here. Dot back. So and then last, of course, I want to. So looking at source control, there's a couple things that I come across. Basically, and this is, again, really high level, but there's centralized source control and decentralized. And centralized is kind of the old, you guys have heard of Visual Source Safe back in the day, and TFS up till a while ago. They use what's called centralized, where basically everything's managed on the server, all the logic is done on the server. You can check out, check back in, but everything is done server side. Logic is done server side. Then along came this idea of decentralized source control, which really shifts all the logic and check in, check out, what's what, where. It all becomes client side, which offers up a lot of great performance, and but there's a problem with that, right? Go back to these blockers here. You really, when you're building as you grow as a team, you have to really understand what everyone's doing. There has to be a circle of trust. But for me, when I'm writing PowerShell code, I'm not working as a team. I mean, I'm sharing code with people. I'm saying, hey, copy this script off of here and go run it. But I don't have multiple contributors to the same source code, and then we're pulling and getting and all that kind of stuff. However, you can easily slide into that as you get more and more advanced. But for me, this is just my own personal stuff. So high level, those are the two kinds of things that we got going on. Decentralized is the hot new thing, for lack of a better term here. So what have we had in the past? TFS, Team Foundation Server. So you have Team Foundation Server is, there's two ways to do this now. One is you can install TFS locally on a server in your enterprise, behind your firewall, you manage it, you own it, it's great. They also just released in the last year or so tfs.visualstudio.com. This allows you to it's basically TFS in the cloud, TFS as a service. And along with all the source control stuff, you can also manage what's called work items. So you can say, hey, I've got these bugs, or this is some feature that I want to add, and you can keep track of that as well, which is really cool. I've actually started using that even on the infrastructure side of projects. As we're building out servers, we've actually started to use Scrum and Agile in the infrastructure world, not just in dev world, which is not part of this talk, but interesting nonetheless. So as of about maybe 2 months ago, maybe a little give or take, TFS of VisualStudio.com actually started supporting Git, which is something that we're going to be talking a lot about today. Git is a decentralized protocol that allows you to access a repository, do all the check-in, check-out locally on your machine, and for a while, and push it back up to the source. So that is actually something that's really pretty cool. When you create a repository on tfs.visualstudio.com, you can say, I want old school server side, or use Git. So you combine the two, or move one from the other is still a little tricky to do. And then there's some other sites. One is GitHub, which we'll be actually looking at a lot today. Bitbucket is another one that's pretty cool. Codeplex, that you've probably heard, there's all kinds of projects up there for Microsoft open source projects. So GitHub, Codeplex, Bitbucket, they all offer, those are all repositories. And there's a couple ways that you can access those repositories. One is with Git, G-I-T, and then some also offer Mercurial, which is another similar protocol. So one of the benefits of this too is all the stuff is very firewall friendly. It's all over HTTPS, super secure. They're very lightweight clients, and you'll find as we get into the demos, it's pretty easy to get going, especially with some of the tools from GitHub. There's other repositories. Bitbucket also has some tools as well, and we'll show some of how actually PowerShell is involved as well. They wrote some PowerShell modules for Git, which is pretty cool. The other thing about Git, it absolutely gives you all the rope you need to hang yourself with. So you can totally screw yourself over. But in general, if you update your changes and you commit your changes early and change them and commit them often, you can usually find your way back. I'd say 99% of the time. I was watching a demo, the guy did a hard delete, but there's still buried in the cache. There's usually a way to save yourself. You just have to go figure it out. Community around Git is actually really cool. It's a cross-platform deal, so it's wide open. There's lots of great information out there. There's even books on it. So for me, it actually turns out Git is huge. It can be extremely complicated, and it's vast. You can use it for a variety of things and for huge teams. In fact, the author of Git, the guy that created Git, is Linus Torvalds, and he started using it for the Linux kernel. So that's where it comes from. So obviously it can scale, but for me, it works great for just me, myself, and I on 3 or 4 machines across a couple different environments. So with that, we're going to get into it. First of all, does anybody have any questions, concerns? All right. So, first of all, I want to show you guys. This is GitHub.com. So up here, you can create repositories. I like GitHub.com for a variety of reasons. One, actually, the guy from Microsoft actually just left and went to GitHub, and he is now working on making the Windows client for working with GitHub really, really slick. So he's got this little WPF. It's a click once app installs, and I wish I could show it to you here. Ironically called GitHub. And this is just a client that has my what is my repository, and it allows you to synchronize up to GitHub.com. It's click once installer, super slick, easy to get to. And I'll show you in a bit, it also throws in some PowerShell on the back end that we'll go through. So the other side, there's Bitbucket. Bitbucket is cool because it allows you to do private code repositories for free, which is pretty nice. As long as you have only 5 users or less on working on the repository, it's totally free. GitHub, they charge you for private code, but they have a nice little Windows GUI. So it's, give one, 6-1, half does the other, kind of what your concerns are, what you need to do. So we're going to be spending a lot of time on GitHub because that's kind of where I've been, but I'm actually looking at Bitbucket as well because of the private stuff. TFS is free for up to 5 users, by the way. TFS.visualstudio.com. You hook up Git to that. You and 5 other people can have at it. Private code and go nuts. So plenty of options. Depends what your concerns are, what problems you're trying to solve. For me, I was more open source. I want to be able to share my code with people. So I don't have a private paid account with GitHub. This is all the free version. So that being said, let's get going here with Git. So Git is just a command line tool, and in PowerShell. So one of the things when you install GitHub's little GUI, there is actually a module that comes along with it called Tosh Git, and there's several commands that come with this. Mostly for just managing overall, and not a whole lot of check-in, check-out kind of work. I started doing that. I quickly just started using the Git command line itself. So when you look at Git, so here in GitHub, I've got several directories. Okay, these are all actual repositories. But they just look like a file system on my hard drive. Go to CD PowerShell Summit. Now, you'll notice here, there is a couple things going on. One, my prompt changed. So, you see down here, this master, this is what's called the master branch. This is basically where all my stuff is in the repository. And then these little numbers over here, which are red, which you probably can't see very often, there's +2. This is basically saying how many files have changed since I last did a commit. So what I want to do, real quick, I'm going to clean this up. Actually, I'm going to go back here. I think this one's all. This is another repository, all cleaned up. So if I do a git status, it says that there's nothing to commit, my working directory is clean. The stuff on the origin master, that's basically the copy of my repository up in the cloud, up on GitHub.com. Now, let's just go kind of through a quick walkthrough. So let's say we have a repository. Now you can create these things in that GUI and just say like, hey, create a new repository, point it to this directory, and then you can say run git shell and it pops up here. So I just kind of bypassed all that initialization stuff for the sake of time. But it's really pretty straightforward. Also, git init will be going. So git is a command line, and there's a bajillion different arguments to it. So what we can say is git. So show git status. Now let's go and create a file. So let's say adding text and dump that over to demogit.txt. All right, notice what happened right away. We got this +1 over here, so there's a new file that's been added that we're not tracking in our repository. So with Git, there's this idea of kind of a stage and then the actual repository. So what we can do is you say git add, and you can say star or specify a file or do everything. So I'm going to say git specifically demo demo git. Tab completion totally works really, really well in here, by the way. They actually wrote a custom prompt and custom tab for this in this PowerShell module. So we're going to add this. Now it says we're clean, but we haven't committed it to our repository actually. So what we want to do is say git commit. Now here's one key that's really, really important. Every time you commit, you have to include a message. And that message needs to be very precise of exactly what you want to do. So the idea is you can figure out what the heck you were doing 3 months ago when you did this commit, right? So you can save yourself or you can hang yourself, take your pick. But me, I'm gonna probably hang myself later on and do just initial commit of demo.txt. All right. Now you notice my prompt is all clean. Let's say we want to go and add a feature to demo.get.text. So we've written some code. It's good. If you, what we can do is we can create a branch. So what this allows you to do is say, okay, we're at a certain point. We're going to go off and write some more code. I'm going to take that code and we're going to shove it back into the master. Once we're done, we know it works. We've tested it. But meanwhile, we don't have to screw up what we've already built. Pretty standard workflow. So if we say git branch, we'll call it, we're going to add feature one to this. That creates a branch in time right now. Then we can check out that branch. Git check out. And if I tab through here, I can tab through all the stuff that I can check out at this time. So one of these things that I can check out happens to be feature one. Now you'll notice that the tab there, actually let me back to the top of the screen a little easier. Feature one is now the branch that I'm working on. So here's what we can do. If we say notepad demo get.text, let's say added feature one here, did some more code, it's all tested and good, we think. All right, so now if I do, if I hit enter, the prompt changes again. It says, hey, you've edited this code. You've edited a file here that we're tracking. What do you want to do with it? So we're gonna stage it again. So by git add, and then we're going to git commit again. Added feature one. All right, it tells me what I did in the file. So now, if we go and if we look at the contents of demo get on this branch, there's all the changes that we've made. Life is good. We want to go back and say, okay, now we've tested it. We've done some work. Let's go back to the master branch. We're ready to say, okay, we've done all our testing. We've written our code. Now, if I go and look at demo.get.txt, it's not there. We switch back to the master branch. So now I've got two copies, essentially, one in master, one in feature one. We obviously want to bring those two together. So while we're in master, we can say git merge, and we can pull that branch back in. and it updates the file. So now I can say, look at git demo git.txt, and there's all the features. So now Git, like I said, there's literally books written on this stuff. That right there is kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. It's really pretty straightforward. Obviously, there's a ton of other things that we can do. Let me take a look here. So there's also git log. So now let's figure out, what have we done today, actually in the past. So here, this will actually go through and show you all the commits, who committed them, the date they were committed, which is useful. But what I have found is there's a parameter called oneLine, which makes it a lot easier. In fact, there's also something called decorate. So this will tell me a lot about what I've done in the past. You'll see that there's the comments, the messages for each commit that I've done. And on the far left column, it's actually a hash. This hash key literally points to each commit. So the way that you reference different commits, if you want to go directly, if you haven't put a tag on there, if you haven't put any kind of label, you can always go and manipulate directly to the hash if you see fit. The other thing that you'll notice about this is head. This is basically where are you pointing to right now? What commit am I pointing to? There is. I'm going to cheat here and look at some. This, like I said, I don't. What I just did is kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. There is some pretty cool stuff that you can do here that I wanted to share. One is the idea of tagging. So we can, while we're in master, let's say we want to label this point in master that we're at. We're going to call this version 1.0. So you can say git tag -a, and it helps. We'll call it v1.0. Right. And so if you don't type a message about what you're doing, it will actually give you your default text editor. You say this is version 1.0. Save it, and it creates some random text file for you. But what Git's doing is just basically asking for input. So now, if I say git log decorate, you see this tag version 1.0. Now what I can do is let's say that I get to feature 2, feature 3, 2 or 3 weeks later, I want to go back and see what was at 1.0. I can, rather than going directly to checkout with the hash, I can reference just the tag there, which is kind of useful. So the workflow that I've come up with is working on master, create a new feature, merge the feature in. If it's something that I want to say release up to Tosh code or to GitHub or on my blog or something like that, I might put a tag on there so I can reference it later. Make sense?
Is Git a commandlet? Is it an alias, or is it? It's not.
Git is actually, if we do GCM,
should be executable. It's not a PowerShell.
It is an exe. Yeah.
it's an exe.
Yeah.
So Git.exe, so there's Git is a cross-platform application. So there's Git.exe for Windows. It's used in Linux on Mac, all over the place.
That module you loaded, do you use the commandlets, or does Git call them, or?
Yeah. So no, I basically don't. So there are a few commandlets that I use occasionally. What I started to do, and I think I'm at the point now where I've got a fairly fluid workflow. So what I'm planning to do is have a set of basically a module that will wrap git.exe for add-git file, commit-git file, check out, new branch, add branch, delete branch. There's probably about, I'm thinking, really 6 to 8 different commands that would probably make sense, just as script commands, advanced functions. Oh, yeah, so you notice I had to type get log one line decorate. I actually like this. I use that quite a bit. So just like you can create an alias or a function in PowerShell, you can create aliases in Git as well. So if I go back to quick notes, I will tell you how to do that. I think I will. Maybe it won't. No, it won't. There's Git and no. Well, there is a way to create an alias in Git. Apparently, I deleted my note on that. That in it of itself, quick and dirty, is what I have been doing for source control. So my challenge to people, if you're not using anything for source control, give it a shot. The other thing that's kind of cool about Git, even when you use GitHub, their Windows app is a little WPF. You can say sync this up to the repository or not. So even if you're just managing local scripts, you can absolutely use this. You don't need a server to do basic source control. If you're doing that, though, you don't have the backup to the cloud that you would, and you wouldn't be able to access it on other machines. But that being said, it's still something that's pretty useful. So that, yeah.
So going back to this morning's talk about writing modules rather than scripts, is there any way to interface either with Git or with another source control methodology to auto-update version string numbers? So when I do a push, it actually auto-increments the version number? You've seen anything that does that?
I haven't seen anything, but I imagine that would be pretty easy to implement. So, are you talking about like in the PSD1 file?
Yeah, like that's something I would say, git push and automatic updates. Okay, now you're on 1.1.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the kind of thing that I would get into. Like, it would be really easy to write a function that would do that, right? And just say like, update code. And someone was telling me they had a scheduled task that just runs every night. It syncs up their scripts in their modules directory and it just pushes it up. Whether there's if there's changes, sweet. If not, oh well. It's just a scheduled task that said everything's up to date. But yeah, I think that'd be pretty easy to wrap.
Does that pull stuff down as well, like on a second machine?
Yeah. So so git push now takes everything that I've done and shoves it up to GitHub. Git pull everything down. There's also this idea of cloning. So what's cool about GitHub and Git in general is that a lot of this is open source stuff. So it's really ridiculously easy, all just over HTTPS, to pull down somebody's code. When you pull it down, not only do you get the code as is, you get all the change history as well. That's the other thing too. It's actually really cool. I'll create an initial repository over here, work on it, commit changes, make changes, shove it up there, pull it down on another machine. I still have all my change history, which is pretty useful.
Yeah. Were you going to get to some resources for learning to get, or could I recommend one?
Absolutely. In fact, yeah, go ahead.
So on GitHub, if you go to try.github.com, I think it is.
Yeah.
There's an amazing resource. It will show you the Git command line, and it's a little interactive thing that's you can learn Git from that in like 15 minutes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It doesn't teach you everything, obviously.
They're
Git in 15 minutes.
Yeah, try to GitHub. Also, somebody was telling me there is a video. If you Google with Bing for Tinker Toys and Git, it's like a 30-minute demo